All right. Sorry about that. This is my third time trying to go live and getting the phone rotation correct. I forget every week how to do that. So welcome. We will give it a few minutes just to let some people time to join us here, and then we will get started. I'm going to attach a link to the comments section while we're waiting. Welcome everybody joining in. We're giving it just a minute or two and then we'll get started here with our prayer discussion. I'm attaching a link to the comments section while we're waiting. All right. Hello, Jay. It's good to see you on here. Hope you're doing well. All right. Get myself organized here, and then we will get started. All right, well, if anyone else joins in here in a little bit, that'll be great, and you can just kind of catch up with us. Again, this video, like all of our videos, are able to be viewed in their entirety after the live feed has ended. So if you join us and you miss part of it, that's fine. You can rewind it after and watch from the beginning. So it's good to be with you all again. I hope that over the last week you were able to carve out some time to spend praying through the Psalms of the week. I know for myself that when I do that, it's a really powerful experience to read the prayers of other people. Sometimes it can be difficult for me to express my own emotions or my own feelings. And so being able to read the words of others as my own often help me to describe those indescribable feelings that I have. I also found it a really unique experience to be able to step forward into the presence of God. It was almost as if God was calling me or calling us forward to follow. So just like in weeks past, and I mentioned this earlier, I've attached the Google Doc. It's the same one every week. I just add to it in the comments section of this video, where you will be able to find all of the resources that you need to participate in this prayer journey with us. So each week I'll be adding to that document with a new way to engage God through prayer. And if you missed any of our time together in the past couple weeks, we have been adventuring through a book called The Guidebook to Prayer by Mary Kate Morse. Now, Dr. Morse was one of my seminary professors and actually one of Pete's seminary professors too. And she was very instrumental in helping me to develop a rich prayer life. And so the goal of this study for anyone who chooses to engage is to find some new and exciting ways to nurture your relationship with God through prayer. Now, one exciting announcement that I have is that in 2 weeks, on April 30th, Dr. Morse is actually going to be joining us on this live feed, which I think is really cool. I reached out to her last week and she agreed to join us. So in 2 weeks, she will be on the live feed. So if you have any questions for her, she would love to answer them. So be thinking of any questions or comments or stuff like that you want to ask her, and you can bring them and post them in the comment section. We'll get to them. That week will look a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit of a back and forth between myself and Dr. Morse as we discuss that week's prayer topic. So look forward to that. As I've said all along through this journey together, There are many different ways to pray, and none are necessarily any better than the other. They are just different. We read a quote in the book, in the introduction chapter, that can be summed up like this, that God is like a city, and prayer is like the avenues into the city. Some may be freeways and roads, others may be hiking and biking trails. But no matter what route you take, you are getting closer and closer into the city. You are drawing closer and closer to God. So today, we will be diving into chapter 2 of the book, which centers on creative prayer. Creative prayer is such a unique and wide open opportunity to simply be with God. Much like when we practiced sitting in silence a couple weeks ago, there is no main agenda other than to simply create with the Creator. In the chapter, Mary Kate begins by reminding us that in Genesis, God is the creator of all things. God made all things out of nothing, and it was good. Then God made us in God's image, and it was good. By inference, we connect with God when we are creative, and it is good. Because we are made in the image of God, one of our primary drives is the desire and the ability to create. Many of us believe that being creative or artistic is a special gift, something you either have or you don't have. Often we get the unwritten message that our creative efforts are okay for display on the home refrigerator, but not for display in the art gallery. We often see creativity as a profession rather than as an expression of being fully human. Now, I will be the first and loudest to tell you that I am not very artistic. I cannot draw or paint very well. In fact, whenever I have to draw a person, it is always a stick figure. I do not know a multitude of musical instruments. Some of you may have seen me playing the djembe on Sunday mornings. That is it. That is all that I have to offer in terms of playing a musical instrument. And so when I first read this book in seminary, and I saw the chapter of this title, I was intimidated. I figured, this one would not be for me. But I still chose to engage, and I realized it wasn't about what I was going to produce, but about the act of producing something and knowing that God was going to be proud of it. So Mary Kate continues on by reminding us of the dangers that come when we think like I did, that, because I wasn't artistic, that I had nothing to offer. She said, as we grow, this message becomes even more ingrained. This message, that you're not artistic enough, you can't create something good. A grade school teacher once wrote on Walt Disney's report card that Walt has no imagination. Walt obviously ignored this assessment of his gifts. However, many of us accept such messages and do little to stretch our creative potential or use creativity as a means of prayer. This is tragic and has unintended consequences for our spiritual lives. Without creativity, we can develop a fixed pattern of responding and thinking in a formulaic manner. The brain learns through patterns of repeating messages established with neuron connections over and over. When we learn to read, we recognize the letter A by seeing it over and over. When we become proficient, we recognize the A in a variety of fonts and styles. But in the beginning, the letters are simple and large. Creativity allows us to imagine many other possibilities. The A can be different colors and shapes and styles. Without creativity, rigid behaviors and thoughts become deeply enforced. And we miss the movement and the mystery of God. So I don't know about you, but I have enjoyed at least, one or two of Walt Disney's creations. I'm sorry, I'm actually having some technical difficulties on my end. My notes sheet stopped loading here. I'm going to see if I can get it back working. But sometimes we hear narratives about ourselves that tend to stifle our creativity. Give me 1 second here. I'm trying to get it up and working again. My internet seems to be malfunctioning. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm going to see if I can get it loading again. So if you need an intermission break, go ahead and take one here. Let's see. All right. Think I got it working again. Maybe a couple more seconds here. This is actually the first time I didn't print this out, which is kind of ironic, huh? All right. Getting loaded up. Oh no. Okay. We're getting there. All right. So yeah, I have enjoyed obviously many of Walt Disney's creations, as I'm sure many of you have as well. Sometimes we hear these narratives about ourselves that stifle our creativity. And sometimes we're even the ones that speak those narratives into our own lives. But I would encourage you to remember that we are all creative. We have the creative gene within us. So allow that to breathe. Don't suppress it. Don't suppress that. Mary Kate writes that by being creative, we connect to God in new ways outside of the more controlled and structured parts of our brains. As we get older, we are less and less able to think creatively. Not because we don't have the capacity, but because our environments often limit our options. A child is an open book, but an adult is even less open. Many things are already figured out. We are less likely to entertain new ideas, even if from God. Creative prayer gives us the opportunity to animate God's presence within us. By being creative, we allow God to open up areas of our lives that are not controlled and not managed. Being creative simply means that we make something that wasn't there before, whether it is a watercolor, a poem, a tray of cookies, or even a refurbished car. Each creative expression is unique to its creator. To create means to bring into existence. And the goodness of that act blesses the one creating and others. Creativity is not about the outcome, but the process, the experience of creation. So I think it's our temptation to think of prayer as something that can't include the things we love to do. And I would ask, why not? God wants to be there alongside of us when we are most passionate. If your thing is restoring old cars, allow God space in that. Make that part of your prayer time. If you love photography, be reminded of God while you are capturing beauty on film. Creativity is one of the most natural ways that we can that we can connect with God, but those narratives that we've been ingrained with have suppressed that notion. Mary Kate sums it up in this way: creativity is one of the highest forms of prayer, and yet there is no quality standard to its expression. It simply connects us to one of God's primary impulses, to create good things. Not because the thing is beautiful or perfect, but because the thing reflects something of the nature and imagination of God and thus draws us closer to God. Creative prayer is giving God access to areas of our inner life often neglected. Being creative connects us with our essence and with God's nature. So this week, as you carve out time to spend with God in prayer, try doing something creative. It can be something you've done all your life, or it can be something new. I will say, when I read through this book in seminary, this is actually how I got into cooking. Cooking for me used to just be heating things up in the microwave or in the oven. I would buy almost everything at the grocery store from the frozen food section. But still to this day, I actually cook real food. And that began as a process of creative prayer. I actually buy stuff from the produce aisle and from the fresh foods aisles. And it's been a really great experience for me and something that has developed into a lifelong habit. So the steps for this are very simple. And again, if you follow that link in the pinned comment to the Google Doc, the steps are all spelled out for you there so that you can reference it throughout the week. But this is what it's going to look like for us. So first, decide what creative prayer project you might like to do. This can be something completely new and different that will stretch you, or it can be some creative activity you're used to doing. Number 2, decide how much time you will devote to this, whether 15 to 30 minutes or maybe even a couple hours. But decide on a time frame so that you know how long you're getting into this. Number 3, begin with silence and instill a reflective, God-focused spirit in you. Silence is important, especially when we are planning to acknowledge the presence of God around us. And if you get completely immersed in the project and forget to think about God as part of it, don't worry. Simply come back to God's presence that is near to you. And then finally, at the end of the time, journal or reflect on your experience. Ask questions like, is this a form of prayer that might feed your soul? Do you feel close to God when you are doing this? Were there any blocks? How did you experience God? So before I close this video session out, I want to ask, are there any questions that you guys might have for me that hopefully I'll be able to answer off the cuff? If not, I can get back to you. But are there any questions that you have for those of you watching right now before we end this video session? All right. Well, I hope and I pray that this is a growing experience for you. I hope that it is a way for you to pursue your passions with God or to try new things with God, or even both. But whatever you decide to do, remember that God is with you and God is smiling upon you as you create a masterpiece, as you create something that is unique to you. All right, everyone. We love and miss you all, and we will see you here next Thursday as we continue this discussion of prayer. We'll see you next time.